Hey, everybody, and welcome back to What's Next Gen X. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Anne Marie. And What's Next Gen X is a podcast for Gen X by Gen X. And we like to say that we bring together the Gen X community so that we can provide information and inspiration to you to help you level up your career, life, and impact. Or as we like to say, so that you can find your what's next. All right, Nicole, let's talk. Today's
All right,
show.
Anne-Marie. Well, first of all, let me just say for those, especially the listeners who have for a long time, I apologize. I've been fighting these germs like the Karate Kid, but somehow I got a cold, so just work with me.
It's not
But
bad audio. It's literally
yeah,
just like I just can't
do
breathe.
not adjust anything on your end. It's me. I'm trying not to sound like the ants of The Simpsons, but every once in a while it comes and goes. But Anne Marie, again, always excited about our shows. This one is titled Changes. Remember, changes.
Changes.
So it's all about navigating life's crossroads, embracing resilience, and finding joy in reinvention. So we're thrilled to welcome Janet. She's a powerhouse leader who has redefined success across multiple careers, from launching tech startups to becoming a sought after national speaker. Janet has done it all, but her story doesn't stop there. She stood up against workplace discrimination, fought for justice, and now dedicates her life to mentoring Gen X women at pivotal moments in their lives. So get ready for a conversation about courage, career pivots, and thriving through life's transition. So, with that, welcome, Janet.
Oh, thank you so
Welcome.
much, Nicole and Anne Marie, and what a wonderful intro. Thank you so much. And hello to all the Gen X listeners. I'm very excited to be here.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
that's awesome. All right, Janet, you have had such an incredible career. Like, how have you embraced all of the changes that have come throughout your career?
Well, thanks. I don't think I'm really anything special. I think for most of us, especially for women, we just keep marching on. It's what we handle day after day. And for me, just a little background, which I don't want to take any of your thunder, but I lost all my family in my 20s. And I
Oh,
also became a mom and during that time. And then also by 28, 30 was a single mom. And at that point had a business. And so it was just like you get up every day. And I just think not to in any way say that everybody should be a parent, but when you are a parent, you have to step up. You have to get them to school. You have to make that lunch. You've got to help them with homework. You learn patience and resilience, and it transfers you to your career.
Mhm.
So everybody out there dealing with the challenges, keep going. It's all going to come out really well. That's what I learned.
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that because one of the things Nicole and I did one of our very first episodes about some of the traits of Gen Xers, and it is that adaptability and resilience
Mm, yeah.
and being able to adjust with changes, whatever they may be. And I think, for many of us, we look at changes as something bad. And for those of us that look at it as like, you know what, this is just another thing. I can handle it. I see you nodding for those who are listening. Like, tell us more about that. Like, how have you just been able to handle all of these changes?
Well, I think you get in life, that's a great question. How do you handle them? I think that's very individual. I
Mhm.
think challenges make you go to the core of your being.
Mhm.
And I think through the changes, because they kept going, uh,
Yep.
that it helped me find my spiritual core.
Mhm.
And that had been something I had left religion early on from a whole bunch of experiences, but I really got in touch with my spiritual core that really did give me a foundation that
Mm,
of just self-reliance and kind of comfort. But it's still day to day. Do you reach out to get help from other people?
Mhm.
Honestly, I didn't have a lot of people. I didn't have any family. And so I just I think one of my skills is a lifelong learner,
Mhm.
blessed that I'm pretty quick. And I just kept saying, okay, what have I got to learn? How do I do it today? I think we just get up and put one foot in front of each other. However, I'm also blessed. I'm someone who's had good health and I've had good mental health. I did invest in quite a bit of therapy through
Mhm.
those years. Thank you, therapists. But
yeah.
there really are people to help. And I think in our culture, it's not okay to say you need help. That seems to be changing a little bit, which I'm glad
Yeah.
Yeah.
that way. But it's like where can you get some help? Who come out and ask? And most people are here to help you, I think.
So, Janet,
Yeah.
you touched on something because you said you didn't have family, and one thing that Anne Marie and I touch on is community. It's kind of like
Yeah.
your chosen
Yeah.
family, or who's that community that you can kind of go to. Who became kind of your chosen family? What's that community that you kind of gravitated towards?
Well, thank you. I'm thinking through as you asked that the kind of the different decades.
Yeah.
But in my 30s, I owned a fitness club and a health food store, and it was women oriented. So it was really fun to get paid to work out all the time. But I got into wellness. I had been in college thinking I'd be pre-med. And I was really loved lots about it until I hit organic chemistry, at which point I went, oh, you're not going to be a doctor. So I went towards wellness, and that stayed a constant through my life. I think it's interesting, ladies. I'm answering these kind of broadly, but I had thousands and thousands of women over 12 years come through. And
Wow.
I started seeing beautiful women, challenged women, older women, younger women, like everything, every body
Hmm.
shape possible. And one day I went, I don't think there's a single woman that came through my doors that liked herself,
Mm.
that truly loved herself. And it made me really start looking at all the pressure we get about our appearance, about our skills. And what I found, the longer they would work out and they'd start to get stronger, their life changed. They would tackle the bad boyfriend. They would get out
Hmm.
of the bad job. Their confidence came up. The stronger you
Hmm.
got physically and healthier, they're like, hey, I don't have to take this anymore. It was just amazing to watch. And they started to love themselves. So that was one of my community was that group and all the people I employed, but it was really having a community, as you said, Nicole. And I think over time, those women would tell stories to each other as they're changing into their workout gear and stuff. And you have that now, I think, still in the fitness community. They get
Hmm.
a lot of support from each other.
So that's amazing, right? So, and you have such an incredible background because for those of you that don't know, so you helped launch 7 tech companies. You're a national international speaker working with Fortune 100 companies, and then eventually you're actually forced out of a financial services company, right, for gender discrimination, gender and age discrimination. You sued and won, right? And so there's a whole lot to unpack in all of those things, and many of our listeners are still in corporate, right? And they might not be in an environment that is as supportive as the health industry, right? Where you find your community. They're in an environment where it might not feel rewarding. Well, how do you speak to someone who's currently in that negative corporate environment and thinking about making a change? Like, what would you say?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, Emery. There's a lot.
There's a lot there. I know.
A lot there because I think you have to back up and say, do I have a family? Am I dependent
Hmm.
on for my income?
Yeah.
A lot of women at Gen X, a lot of men too. You've got kids here and you've got parents. You guys are kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
sandwiched a lot, right? And
Hmm.
so you might see mom going into dementia and you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
Right? And you think, I might really dislike my job, but I need the income. So I think it's really looking up, instead of, oh yeah, just jump out. I think there's a lot going on for everybody today.
Yeah.
But this is a strain I really would like to talk about, but let me kind of, like as you say, unpack it.
Yeah.
Um, After I had consulted for a number of years, and when that company finally said, we really need you on board, I just happened to have the wonderful opportunity challenge that they bought a company of IT consultants that they pretty much gave free rein to.
Oh.
And sorry, gentlemen, this is not a slam, but those gentlemen systematically took out all the women. Over about
Mm.
6 months,
Wow.
they just got rid of them.
Mm.
Well, being a little older, a little wiser, and a little more of a kick-ass person, I said, fine, let's go to court.
I
There
think that's
is
a country
that's
song. A little wiser, a little,
right,
That's
a little
right.
kick-ass
wiser.
person.
you know,
Third verse, let's go to court.
let's go to court. And I had everything of all their conversations and emails and how they
Wow.
just discriminated and sued the company and won. And
Nice.
what you'll find is, I love people in HR. God love you. You're right in the middle of the mess. But HR is there to protect the company. They're not
Yeah.
Yes.
there to protect you as an
Yeah.
employee. So I knew that. And they got to settle out and they got to keep their shiny reputation. And I went out the side door, which was fine. But that's still alive and well. Unfortunately, it's better for women coming up in your age group. And, but I think something that we'll transition to 50s is a really interesting time. I think you've got your confidence mostly.
Mhm.
You've been through, you've got most of your generation has a great education. Hopefully, you've got some money put away. But you're starting to go, if the kids are old enough and you both have children, you're kind of starting to go, what's next? Which is what I loved the title, what's
Yeah.
Gen X? Because you start going, okay, I'm jumping ahead here.
It's all good.
In the business I'm working in now, so got a lot to do with longevity. So we're in this interesting time. A woman 45 now is expected to live to 100. This is from the Stanford Institute of Center for Longevity. Okay, so think about that. We don't have careers figured out for people to go to 100. We don't have housing figured out. We don't have healthcare figured out. And what you find is, at least for me, day to day, my 50s was just like, get me all the way through to bed at night. That's about as far as I was looking. Okay,
Right.
we got through this. But as you're going through your 50s and your 60s, at least in America, maybe you have people listening from all over the world. In America, the good news about being 60 is that there's no roadmap. The bad news is there's no roadmap.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so if you've got another 20, 30, or 40 years, and that's what's going to happen for you guys, it's like, oh, because about mid 50s, most corporations want you out. They're
Yeah.
looking for the 30, 35-year-old MBAs. Let's get the new
Yep.
tech people in. Let's get cheaper labor in.
Right.
But as you ladies are so in touch with, there's amazing opportunities we have now at this time.
Yeah.
That's what's so exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
And I
rambling.
think this is the age too where you actually have to be more curious,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
we want our kids to be curious, but this is actually a time where you have to be curious too, because contrary to popular belief, yes, they're pushing us out, but then they're secretly calling us too, because they realize that group behind us coming in doesn't their demands and they don't want to work that long. They're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Where's the Gen Xers? Because we know they like to work and they can at least help in this and the other. This new crop coming in, and not all of them, I don't want to
Yeah.
stereotype, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just different. They're really big on, if you don't meet all of my needs, it's like we kind
Right.
of sort of had a checklist, but the group behind us has a very strong checklist. If
Yeah.
that company doesn't meet all of it, they're out.
Yeah. And I think, Janet, sort of adding on to that is the idea that we were all taught that there was one way, right? Go to college,
Yeah.
get your corporate jobs, do
Yep.
this. And so she's nodding for those of you that can't see it, right? And the idea is now in your mid 50s, you pick your head up and you're like, what else is out there? Like, how do I look at something? And I had a podcast prep with a gentleman the other day, and he's like, I was worried what people would think with me leaving my job and doing this new venture. Like I was worried about the stigma of not being at a Fortune 100 company any longer. I was worried about this. And so it is that idea of lifting your head out and trying to see what else is around and get exposed to other ideas. And picking
Yeah.
maybe like you coming back to one of your passions in health and wellness. Yeah.
Yeah, and it passion and purpose, I think, are the key
Mm.
words there, Emery. And I think if you're connected to your passion and purpose, God love you. Because I think often by your fifth decade, you're like, oh, the thrill is gone. Like, what am I going to do? Okay. That might be our song, Nicole. The thrill is gone. But I think there's a transition time because you've focused so much on your career, many people are still paying down student debt. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
insane, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be in this career anymore. But you have, I think the benefit of a college education is you learn to think. And
Yeah.
they can't take that away from you. They can't take away your true skill set.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a discovery time in this process. What is your true skill set? So mine is definitely, I have a strong ability to see strategically, a lot of insight and communication. My daughter, on the other hand, a Gen Xer, is totally logistically oriented. She's like a whiz of, you got a $50 million project, the girl's got it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, what are your skills at this? What do you love? What is that core? And sometimes that takes maybe doing some personal work. Maybe you need to
Yeah.
go to some seminars. Maybe you need to
Yeah.
just open it up and go, back in college, I loved doing art, let's say, but you
Yeah.
put it away because you couldn't make a living.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. I think now we have the ability to change careers, get new education. Good God, you can get an education on Google practically.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
It's true.
AI now. Like you
Yeah.
can basically, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can figure
Yeah.
things out. Yeah.
Yeah. And Janet, you touched on something too when you talked about a woman 45 today could live to 100. It's so interesting because I think about when I was younger and I met someone 50, they seem so old. Now, 50-year-olds, sometimes they could pass for 40. I feel like our group is like we're younger, we're stronger, we're feeling better.
Yeah.
We've seen our grandparents deal with Alzheimer's. We've seen our grand so we're trying to, whatever we can to, maybe not get Alzheimer's and dementia and eat clean and, working out. I see more and more women at the gym, everybody's like lifting the weights, trying to get that muscle mass going, even though I know we're going to lose it. It's so interesting how we're looking at health. I'm hoping we can pass that
Mhm.
down to the generation behind us because we're focused. I mean, again, why we're going to live long is because we're so focused, and maybe our parents really didn't tell us, but it's just what we've learned and what we've seen over the years.
Very well said, Nicole. Very well said.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So I think, Nicole and I often talk about this, right? Is that our generation is not looking to retire and sit in the rocking chairs, right? And so walk us through a little bit about as you've sort of gotten out of corporate and into your new health and wellness, right? Talk to us a little bit about how you're approaching your business and how you're approaching some of that idea, because it's not just the health and wellness, it's also the mental activity and engaging with people and everything else that is keeping you young and keeping you in this vitality. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Henry. You guys get me very excited. You've got so much good stuff ahead of you. Like, probably in 10 years, people won't wear glasses or anything.
Oh, thank God.
There's so many technologies coming. And I think that was why when I was helping launch tech businesses, seeing what's coming, I always did research. You can see what the future is. So first of all, for health and wellness, stay in touch with what's going on, you guys. And
Hmm.
you've got to be a little proactive. I have a lovely, wonderful girlfriend who's been in financial services for quite a long time. She's now 59. And I constantly kind of prod her, you need to look what's out there. You need to
Hmm.
be preparing for
Yeah.
the next stage. They're going to move you out. In fact, I'm amazed they kept her this long. And she's just someone that doesn't spend any time seeing what the world's doing. It's moving
Mm.
too fast. You have to. You have to
Yeah.
put that on your calendar. You
Yeah.
mentioned AI. Everything I'm seeing and in my business, oh, a year from now, so many jobs will have changed, like your point of change and opportunity. But AI is sweeping things clean.
Mhm.
It's going to be very different. So, are you going to learn some of that stuff? What are the new things you're going to have to learn just to be operating in this, right?
Yeah.
So I want to say that you just have to make a point. You might say, I don't even know where to start. Well, thank God they're on your program where you ask the question, what's next, Gen X? Like,
Mhm.
I wish someone had asked that of me at your age. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know yet, right? So that, if I may transition into health a little bit, because no one tells you practically.
They
Right.
don't. No one talks about
Right.
it.
Not what I'm going to talk about. So, gentlemen, hold on here a little bit. Ladies, no one really tells you what menopause is about very much.
Right.
There's a little more out there compared to when I went through it, but I'm kind of disgusted because there's not a lot. So number one, most women are going to drop 80% of their hormones in 2 years. So one day you're fine, and the next day you want an AK-47 because you're like, oh
We
my
do not
God.
promote gun
Or,
violence on Gen
Well,
X
don't
usually.
promote, but
or maybe
you're
two of them
sitting
have
in
been
these
putting it.
corporate meetings
Yeah,
and your face is
totally.
so red and you're sweating and you're like, you can't practically talk, right? So you're trying to deal with that. You're trying to deal with often if you have teenage kids at that level, you're like, So you're going through all these changes. All right. What they didn't never told me, maybe they have with you. When you drop these hormones, the estrogen, the testosterone, the progesterone, many things happen. One of which is one of the hormones, cortisol, which comes from your adrenals, which is that great, get you going. If there's a fright, get you running. That's cortisol. Boom, right? Well, the other guys are gone, and cortisol is kind of like, where'd everybody go? And it's pumping out all that craziness, and you can't sleep, and you're anxious, and you're like, oh my God. Okay, so that's all askew. Then, because you've lost estrogen, you start losing bone. But they don't tell
Mm.
you that over the next 10 years, 50 to 60, you're going to be losing bone. 60 years old, the doctor goes, oh, Anne Marie, you've got osteoarthritis. And you're thinking, where did I get that?
Right.
When did that happen? When did I get
Yeah.
arthritis? The estrogen protects all the linings inside of our joints. Think of the hips, all around the
Mm.
back, in the knees, the hands. You start losing the fluid in there. You start getting inflammation in there. They're called inflammatory cytokines. You're like, God, I'm just kind of a little more achy. My daughter
Mhm.
said, my feet are starting to hurt. And I remember that. It was like the bottoms of my feet start hurting. I thought,
Mm.
this is all going on biologically. You're trying to go to work and you're trying to pay the bills, right? Next, you start losing 3% muscle mass every year after 50. Men too.
Mm.
Now, I love to work out. I still work out. I'm glad you're
Yeah.
working out. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's metabolic. You're
Wow.
losing muscle. Okay. So then you're like the mitochondria in the cells, which are like the little power plants. They're like putting out this little
Mhm.
ATP energy. You start going, oh, maybe not today. Maybe I just don't feel like it. I'm a little more tired. Oh God, I should go work out, but I just don't feel like it. All these things are happening. Okay. So I'm not here to diagnose or say you should go on natural hormones, although I think you should look at it. Just know what they've come up with recently, also. We're so lucky as women. Menopause changes our brains, and they're now being able to map that our brain may change up to 30%. And this is not
Wow.
good. It's a woman, I'll get you her name. She's a researcher out of Columbia University. They kept going, why do women have dementia 3 times more than men? And they kept looking at all the
Mm.
factors. And finally they go, let's look at menopause. We've looked at everything else. So for women who've had hysterectomies, we're doubly incidence of dementia goes up twice more.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. So now you have to go, oh, my brain, what am I going to do now? And they don't really help us at this level. Only of all the money spent on research, billions every year on health research, guess how much is spent on women's health?
Oh, it's got to be teeny. Yeah.
I
Less
would
than
say,
2%.
I was gonna
okay. Yeah.
say, yeah, like 1%, 2%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That's it.
it. Unfortunately, it doesn't shock me, but it's just mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mind blowing. So I love that we want to work out, eat clean. Definitely you should do it. Definitely when I
Yeah.
should, I do. It's not enough.
Mm.
There's so many changes that are happening metabolically for us. So that's what pushed me into the business I'm in now, and I'll talk about it. But I want to get the word out there because you'll go to doctors like my daughter is doing, and they just get the runaround, and
Mhm.
she's still the decline is happening, and especially you're in your career, you got to have your brain working. You
Yeah.
can't have it
Hello.
be a brain fog. And you're just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh my God. And when those hot flashes hit, that's what happens. So I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to say, you guys, no one tells you about this.
Yeah.
Right.
And things are happening to your energy centers way down in the cells. Things are happening. And then the one I learned 4 years ago is our stem cells are dropping. What are stem
Mm.
cells? Those are the master cells that create your eyelashes, your toenails, your bones, your blood. They're everything, right? And they're going into the ground. So there's good news. We can help with this. But when you're going to the doctor going, "Ah, I just don't feel right." And they're like, oh, Nicole, let me give you a drug. Oh, Anne Marie, we got another drug for you. Okay, there's problems there. And a lot of women are now, especially older, are on brain drugs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot. I'm just dealing with a friend, just got back. She's the worst combination, really good health, and she's going into dementia.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a time in your 50s to be proactive, to look, like I said, go research things. There's new
Yeah.
information coming out. And to be honest, it's usually on the podcasts. It's not on
Yeah.
from the doctor. It's
Yeah.
it's just not.
Yeah.
So we can go down that path, whatever you guys want to do, but I would say do work out.
Yeah.
Oh, here's one tip. I don't have it in front of me. Look up essential amino acids. There's a company
Oh,
called
yeah.
Perfect Amino. It's when you can, there's these great tablets, and you swallow like 5 to 7 a day. They're pure essential amino acids that build muscle. Because when we eat protein, we still don't get all the amino
Yeah.
acids. They get flushed out.
Yeah.
These essential amino acids are insanely fabulous, and they'll really help bring your muscle mass up.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
So
great. Yeah.
it's interesting. Oh.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's interesting, Janet. You were going through that list. I was like, the teenager in me was like, "Good God, I survived my period and cramps. Now I gotta worry about this other stuff at the end." It's like, when do I get a break?
But
So, but no, but I mean, I'm making light of it. But yeah, it's good to know that because we don't really have those conversations. I think we're having more and more of them now. It's nice to see
yeah.
people like Halle Berry and a lot more stars and celebrities who have actually sat down in interviews and people are like, "How are you doing?" They're like, I'm going through menopause. And it's not so like, what? Because like my grandmother, I know she would have never had this conversation in a million
Never.
years. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that we can have these conversations. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because on the other side, if you really understand what's there, you can solve for it. And, we've got older people running marathons in their 80s,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
That's
dance
true.
through it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So Janet, like you said, as the mother of a Gen Xer, how do you see the legacy of Gen X? Like how do you see us influencing other generations?
Oh, what a great question. Um, you have all of the experience and you have the wisdom that I've seen with you all.
Yeah.
I think what have experienced, I'm not saying everybody out there, you you either don't want to talk about it or you figure they should figure it out themselves or I'm too busy. I would ask you to be more proactive in
Mm,
sharing your wisdom.
Oh, I like
yeah.
that.
Because
I
I
like that.
think, from those of you who don't know, I helped corporations for about 4 years deal with boomers retiring, Gen X taking over, and the millennial tsunami, as I called it. So I got very
Mm,
involved in generational changes. So boomers live to work. I mean, we're all still working because we love it. You
yeah.
guys were more like, I'll work to live. I've got things I want to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, I figured it out, you figure it out.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think your point, Nicole, you've got to be just what you're doing here on the podcast. Be the leaders, talk about these things because you do have the experience and be willing to step up and say, hey, you don't have to do what I say. You don't have to take my advice, but you may want to know about this. And
Mm, I
I
like
think,
that.
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
no one wants stuff shoved down their throat.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And that's why we want voices like you on this podcast, Jenna, is like we want to hear from people so that we can start to have these conversations and start to open the dialogue, right? Of thinking about what is coming next, right? And so with that, what's on the next for what's on the horizon for Janet? Like what other changes are you looking for or excited about?
Oh, thank you. I have a few notes here.
Sure.
Um, I think I've, I do have a business called Youthing, Not Aging, but
Nice.
Okay.
it's in this umbrella that I call the MORE movement, MORE. And I think it's a time right now to look at what more do I want from life? What more do I want from
Hmm.
relationships? What more do I want for myself? Um, maybe you want to travel more. And maybe like Nicole's
Mm.
talking about all the things she's exposing her son to. I think this is December. We're going to be in January 2025. I've always felt is a pivotal year. So
Mm.
let's start really take some time through the holidays. What do you want next year to be about? Versus
I
you get
like
to
that.
next December and you go, ugh, another year went by. Well,
Right.
I've already planned my year. I've got, trips in it. I've got seminars I want to be in. Where do I want to learn? Different things like that. Because as you get, what is more? If you've been stuck in the thrill is gone, well then, okay, let's give yourself some time. Maybe you don't know quite what it is yet. Nicole and I met through a really wonderful seminar in October that was all about going from burned out to really what's your next level? What do you want to be in passionately?
Mhm.
So if I go back from there, one of the things I've noticed for many of us, it's not focused on just Gen X, but you guys have the lowest confidence reported of retirement funds.
Mhm.
But to your point, Anne Marie, who wants to retire? So
Right.
I don't think
Right.
it's retirement. It's like, okay, how do we build a financial legacy, financial stability that can carry us through, right? Whatever you're doing. So I think you really have to, in this day and age, have multiple streams of income. It's not a cliche anymore. It's not a
Mm.
catchphrase.
Yes.
To your point about the gentleman who was too embarrassed to even talk about it. Well, guess what? No one's here to pay your bills. They
Oh
are not
well.
Right.
in the door to pay your bills, right?
Yes.
And I
Right.
remember talking to, especially men, when I started really looking at how to get multiple streams. I remember a guy sitting down with me in a suit with his resume, like I was going to hire him. And he thought he'd been laid off. Someone's going to give him another $500,000 job at
Yeah.
58. And I'm like, no. So
Mm-mm.
there's I think the blow up of AI, it's going to really change the whole opportunity game because it's all going to be tech.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you can't say, oh, I'm not very tech oriented. You can't. Go
Can't.
go take a class, you get online, you have got to learn some of these
Guess
things.
what? If you have a smartphone and a laptop, you're tech. You're tech. I'm like
Correct.
you, Janet. Stop saying that, especially older people. I'm not really techie. Use your phone. Use your
No
laptop.
more
You're
excuses.
techie.
Yeah.
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 You've got to, because that's our world now, right? You don't have to be a genius, but you've got to get on there. So I would say really the exciting part is your best years are ahead. Honestly, there's
Mhm.
some great stuff as you get older. You're not as anxious. You got more confidence. You're kind of like, ah, screw it if they don't like me, you know? So you're like, and
That's awesome.
you're more curious and you're willing to do things. But two things. You've got to address your health. I just saw an article this morning. Sally Krawcheck. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
did,
I'll
did you see it?
invest. Yeah.
Yeah, she's been like the top woman on Wall Street.
Yeah.
She's got her own company, Elvest, which helps women invest. Well, she's stepping back from health issues. She's 60 now.
Oh, I didn't see
She's
that.
leaving Elvest, and she said, you can have thousands of problems, but if you have a health problem, you only have one problem.
That's deep. Yeah,
Oh,
it's so
wow.
true
That's
though.
deep.
It's so
It's
true.
really
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, because I've always said if you're healthy, that's like winning the lotto these
It
days.
is. It is.
So
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you never know. Like it gets pretty random. But also healthy is financial health. Back when I was launching companies doing research, long ago we had another female on the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor.
Hmm.
Well, she's a Supreme Court judge. She almost went bankrupt from cancer treatments. You're thinking,
Oh
how
wow.
could a Supreme Court judge
Whoa.
not have enough money? And they'd
Right.
almost bankrupted her. So I think part of your new plan has to say, how can I have another extra $500 a month or a week? And just start putting it aside. How can,
Mm.
oh, I
Yeah.
don't have any time. Well, Someone once said, imagine that we got a tall glass vase and it's all filled to the very top with those glass marbles, right? And you're like,
Yep. Oh
there's
yeah.
you, and you got no time. You're up to here. But then the woman took a pitcher of water and started pouring it into the vase, and the water all kind of went all around. And she said, you do have time. You have time in those little spaces.
Yep.
15 minutes here, a half an hour there, maybe an hour over here, 2 days off, that you really do have time. I would ask your listeners to put themselves on that checklist of what's important.
Yes.
You are important. Often, if you're the woman, you're really dependent on a lot of roles. But I just have another woman in my life, divorced, and the husband maneuvered it that she got no financial support.
Oof.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
I'm not saying men are out there to do that. Please don't hear me. Lots of people go through it and they're fine, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to really look at self-care and financial self-care,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
With those, which may be some good podcasts for you with that. I'm not actually a very big believer that 401ks are going to save you. The stock market is not, don't get me going there. Glad if you have them, start looking how you can supplement it with other things. And everybody knows
Yeah.
how to talk. If you have a direct selling business, you're just talking to people. You're doing
Yeah.
what you already do. You didn't
Yeah.
have to go get a master's degree to, or go into nuclear science, things like
Yeah.
that.
What
Yeah.
what I'm hearing,
Well,
Janet, bottom line is lift your head up. Make yourself aware.
yep.
What's going on
Yep.
around you? Don't be
I,
60 and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
No, and
Yeah.
I'm so madly passionate about find another source of income while you're still
Yes.
working, right?
Yeah.
Start now. And it's one of those things where it's like, for most of us, we were trained that there was one source of income, right? Excluding investments and all that good stuff, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, what happens if that paycheck stops, right? And for many people, if you're in your mid 50s, you're starting to think there's an expiration date on that. And so what is your additional source of income? And there are so many options out there. There's direct selling. There's finding a small business on Main Street. Main Street Millionaires, a new big hot book right now. There's a whole, or even just selling your knowledge and your expertise, right? That's part of it. And even with AI, like you can start doing all of these things. And so this is what
Yeah.
we want on this podcast is to get people starting to think about what can I do? What do I know? And just like you spoke about that woman in financial services, so many women in particular, and men too, they just have their head down at work trying to be a good corporate citizen, and they're not thinking about everything that they know, right? And how they can monetize that. I
But
know.
then when they
Oh,
get laid
agreed.
off, they're devastated.
Yeah.
They didn't prepare themselves. You have to
Yeah.
prepare yourself for that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you both are so right. I just want to underline that this because not to be negative, but wake up, Buttercup. They're
Yes.
going to lay you off.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah.
It's the model. So
Right.
no one had shown me this other model about, I had been an entrepreneur. I went and consulted. If you can be a coach at Gen X level, they need you. Nicole and I were talking about, they need you. They
Yeah.
do. You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I did that, and it's all on you. And so I could do 2 clients well. 3 clients, woof, did I go over the edge? It was just so much.
Yeah.
And so what I found is supplementing with some other things when it's not just all me, it's a group creating income.
Yeah.
Then, I just took off to go help the friend with dementia. I could take 3 days off and I didn't have to worry. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
wonderful things in here that you're all hitting on. I really appreciate this podcast.
And I want
Oh,
to
that's
tell our
awesome.
listeners, Janet has 2 freebies. So if you're interested, DM either myself or Anne Marie. You can hit us up on
Yep.
LinkedIn and say, hey, I'd like one of the freebies. So it's going to be first come, first serve. And thank you, Janet, for offering that too.
May I give
Yep.
a little tidbit of what it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
I work with a product that is a non-transdermal patch with light therapy, and I'm offering one that clinically proven, as you wear it 12 hours a day, no side effects, kids can use it. It literally will activate your stem cells that are dropping. It will activate bone, it'll activate muscle, it'll help bring down inflammation in the brain. Hair starts growing, you start sleeping, and these are all clinically proven, okay? The
Wow.
other one is similar, but it really works on anxiety and stress. It'll bring down that whole flight, fright, cortisol response within 20 minutes. You start sleeping better. The inflammatory response comes down. I put one on a couple months ago. I went to the dentist, and I'm pretty good at the dentist, but I put one on like 10 minutes before they get everything in your mouth and suit you up. And I literally felt it kick in, and I just kind of went, oh, okay. So we have some wonderful things for you to try, but just believe in yourself. You've all got strengths and talents, and I appreciate so much
Oh,
what you've allowed me to share today.
we
Awesome.
love
And
that.
Janet,
And
you've been sprinkling the golden nuggets. So
I
thank you so
know,
much.
such a
Yeah.
great conversation. And your website is youthing, not aging. And we'll put that in the notes as well. Like, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Best of luck, everyone.
Okay, and just make sure to follow Janet. Also, like, find her on her website and find us on What's Next Gen X. We're, of course, all across social. And Nicole on, of course, LinkedIn or her website at renewedimpact.com.
Yeah, and remember, everybody, her journey reminds us that change is not the end, it's the beginning of something new. So, whether you're navigating a career pivot, advocating for yourself in a challenging situation, or simply figuring out what's next, you have the strength and wisdom to create a path forward. So, again, Janet, thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
a
Thank
phenomenal
you.
episode. Appreciate you so
Yeah,
much.
Happy
Maybe we'll
awesome.
see you next
holidays.
time.
Thanks, Janet.
Take care.
Bye.